think the most impactful event that's occurring for me is the data. The data that I provide for the teachers, that they do not have the time to compile these reports and deliver those to them. I think it really drives instruction. It's, I would say, the most, if not the most essential part of coaching, because it has such a great impact on instruction.
One of the strategies that we've used too is allowing me to go into classrooms and teachers have more of an opportunity to go see what their colleagues are doing, whether it's on the same team, watching certain groups of kids that they have at another time, or somebody in another grade that they're vertically looking at alignment of content and they're teaching the same subject, and that has allowed them to be able to go in and out of each other's classrooms a little more so that there's somebody in there to be in their class to actually provide instruction while they're out. And then giving all three of us a chance to sit down and talk about what was seen, what worked well, what was different from one class to the other class.
Another thing that we've been doing is using videoing as a coaching tool. And so it's given us the opportunity to video teachers in action, and then they get to watch themselves, and then we can have a conversation about what's going on. So I think that allows them to start that self-reflective process. It grows them in that way. So then as they become self-learners, and that's really what we want them to do, is we want to give them strategies so that they are empowered to change their own instruction based on what they see.
I think that piece about self-reflection and how you all promote the self-reflection is one of the most powerful pieces I've seen you do. I agree that the data is really important because it's given us that focus, but it's caused, the way you're using it causes teachers to self-reflect, it causes us to self-reflect. I think of coaching on a continuum of consulting and collaboration and coaching. It's all kind of this, you have the option of consulting, you have the option of coaching, or you have the option of collaborating. And it's kind of this string where you move back and forth between them. I used to spend a lot of time just in the consulting world, and you don't really get to that level of reflective quality. You don't make that relationship with somebody, and so you never really get to that point, which is why consulting really isn't as valuable. And so as coaches, you're able to have that connection and promote deeper thinking.
Along with that follow-up, whenever something is said in a meeting or you initially put it out there, if you don't have follow-up, it tends to go by the wayside. And the administrators try as hard as they can in any given day to follow up with what has been set forth. But the coaches being in the buildings, able to go in and help follow up with what you've talked about in those meetings more than once, has given them, the principals, the ability then to come back later and follow up and say, okay, I know you've had these meetings, I know you've had these discussions, I know you've been working on this, and it holds everybody a little accountable. That it's not just a one and done kind of deal, that it is an action or a strategy or data usage driving instruction that actually impacts what's happening in the classroom, and the students are the benefit of that, or receiving the benefits of that. I do think that this position has allowed me to help focus teachers on their strengths. I'm a strong believer in promoting strengths as opposed to promoting weaknesses. I think we all have areas we can work on, but I think to make the most gains in any situation, you need to do what you are good at. And this position has allowed me to work with teachers to help point that out. This is a strength of yours, and you can share that, now that I know that. And they've been told that by their principals during observations and other people that observe them, through their evaluations. But to have somebody else come in and say, you're doing this very well, can you share this with somebody? Can someone come watch you? And so the position has allowed me to be able to continuously promote those strengths of different people in the building. We had a very specific example that happened in the building where I'm in with the use of rubrics. And this was actually a rubric that a teacher was using for student growth goal. And they had gone through and went through the rubric with the students, and they had highlighted in that proficient column what they had to have in order to be closer to proficiency. And this was a class where they were doing a writing piece. And the initial, or the baseline assessment, the students didn't score very strongly. They were mostly in the 1s, 1.5, and 2s. As a matter of fact, it was evenly divided between those 3 columns. After the teacher went through the rubric with the students, and the students actually kept the rubric out on their desk, and they felt confident writing, looking at the rubric, and then the student would say to you, I know that this bullet is under the 3. So it immediately showed them an improvement from the baseline to that second or mid-year assessment. And they felt good about that because they knew why they had moved from the 2 column over to the 3 under that particular, that line criterion there. And so that was a definite example of immediate response of success for the student. And it was a growth way to show the students that they had to work to move across that rubric. It wasn't just going to be that, well, 3 weeks later you try it again and magically somehow you improved. No, they knew exactly what they needed to do, and the teacher had very high expectations for all of them to be able to move to the right on that rubric.
And I think one example that we've probably all experienced is where a teacher, for me, it's been more over email, and for you all, it's probably been knee to knee or, side to side, but where a teacher has sent me a question to say, okay, here's the standard that I'm working on addressing. Here's a question I want to use that I think aligns to the standard. What do you think? And, it's given me the opportunity to have email and sometimes in-person conversations with teachers where, in one specific example, the question really did not get to the heart of the standard. And you're able to fix it immediately to say, okay, is this, which target were you really intending from this standard? In what way does this, you still do it through a series of questions rather than me coming out saying, no, here's your new question, because that would be too quick of a fix. But through that questioning and that support for the teacher then from that point is able to develop questions that really do target that standard. But that's an example I think we see across grades.
One thing at the high school that we have, that we struggle with sometimes is just student motivation within itself. And after having a conversation with a teacher recently on how do I motivate these students to want to do well on ACT and on all of these standardized tests that they're held accountable to, we discussed sharing the data with the students. How many questions do you have to get right to get to benchmark and things like that? And as she has promoted that conversation in her classroom and has actually put the kids in competitions, are the boys going to win or the girls going to win, or however she has used that, she has seen an increase by 40% meeting benchmark in her classroom. So if these students were to go and take the ACT, she is excited for them to take the ACT, where 2 or 3 weeks ago we weren't having that same conversation. So I feel like that's an immediate, and I get pictures and things like that. I have 100% engagement today, and she has a picture of it, and she sends it, and she's excited, and she shares that, and as a result, I mean, that makes me want to go and help more, and to do that with other teachers, so that if they're all experiencing that motivation, it's so reciprocal. The students need to be motivated, but when they're motivated, that motivates the teachers. So I feel like as coaching, when we get to that immediate gratification, it's motivation for students, it's motivation for teachers, and it's motivation for us.